Welcome to Families for Life with Brian and Brian, a podcast of Oak Hill Baptist Church.
On today's episode, we're talking about the digital invasion.
Hey, what's up, Brian? How's it going?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Just excited about our new series that we're going to be going through.
Yep.
We finished our Settle for Nothing Less. I really enjoyed doing that series, though. How'd you
Yeah, it
feel
was
about
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. Got good feedback on it. I hope it really encouraged parents. So,
Yep. Well, we're gonna get started though on this other series. You know, you and I talk a lot about technology and how it has affected us, how it affects ministry and parenting. And I know there's a lot of parents out there who think about this all the time. I thought it'd just be a good thing for us to talk about.
Yeah. And I think, we don't want to convey that technology is bad. I mean, I love technology.
Right.
You love technology. We use it in our daily life, in our work life, in our home life. But I do think it's really important that we think about these things and not just accept everything and think that it's all good and all helpful. I think we need a balanced approach in life, in a lot of things.
Yeah, and everything,
But especially when we talk about technology. So, this is something I know that you've really thought a lot about and really, invested a lot of time in. So what's the genesis for this? Why is this so important?
Yeah. Well, on this podcast, we're really trying to focus on encouraging and equipping parents to raising their kids in gospel-centered discipleship, right? And I think that because our world is so not, I guess infused is the right word, with technology, we have to know how to use this for God's glory and for the gospel. This is a huge part of our lives, and if we ignore it, then the enemy is going to take it over, and he's going to use it for his glory in the world. And we want to use, whether we eat or drink, we do all for the glory of God, and that includes being on our cell phones. So that to me is kind of the big thing.
Yeah, and understand that technology is really amoral. It doesn't it intrinsically does not have a good or bad. It's what we use it for.
Exactly.
And I used this illustration before. You can have a brick, and the brick is amoral. You can use it to build someone a house, which is good, or you can throw it through somebody's window, which is bad.
That's exactly right.
And so I think technology has really great advantages, and then also really bad things that we need to be careful of.
That's awesome, Brian. Thanks for sharing that. I think as we just talk about it, we want to introduce this topic really and talk kind of about what the Digital Invasion is. A book that we are using as kind of a resource for some information. Some of it we agree with, a lot of it, not necessarily everything that they have to say in there, but it is a great resource. And the big thing that we want to just talk about is the reality that this is a digital world that we live in.
Right.
We live in a different world since the invention of the computer and especially the internet. And with that comes pros and cons. So there's a list here of pros and cons that there's so many. There's innumerable pros and cons I think we could go through. I'll just go through the list of pros, and then Brian, if you go through the list of cons.
Sure.
Some of the things that are good about technology and the fact that we live in this digital world is that we can get answers at the touch of a button. I don't know about you, but like you find yourself in a fun argument with somebody about where peanuts come from. I don't know, and it's like, I don't know. You just Google it, right?
Yeah. Before the internet, you just had to I guess you're right. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. But now you can find out. We can email people, making correspondence instant. People had to write letters, like real letters, and it took lots of time. Nowadays, I pull my phone out and I write an email, and it's done instantly. We can buy anything at any time from anywhere and have it sent to anywhere.
That's true.
You can see each other through video chat all around the world. That's amazing. We can text, allowing communication in almost any setting, which is both good and bad. And the Bible is available in hundreds of languages, probably more than that. anywhere, like almost anywhere in the world, you can have a Bible on through technology, and including that, digital books are also can be stored and read. I have hundreds of books on my iPad that I take with me everywhere. I have so many resources.
Yeah.
So good stuff, but there's also bad stuff.
Yeah. Some of the cons are the excess of stimuli makes a lack of technology seem boring. So, some of the things that don't involve technology aren't exciting to people anymore. Yeah. I don't know. Pace of life seems much faster. Literally just constant going all the time. There's always people online, always things happening, and maybe you feel like you're missing out if you're not plugged in all the time. Relational and emotional and spiritual growth are drastically affected by an extreme exposure to the digital invasion. And we'll talk more about that as we go along. But I think there's some key things that we can zero in, especially when we talk about spiritual growth.
Yeah.
And then our brains are changing. I mean, that's not necessarily bad in and of itself, because people's brains have always changed and adapted as we've gone through the history of the world. But they are changing, and some of it is yet to be seen if it's going to be a big negative or what the positive is there.
Yeah, I think the con behind that is not so much that brains are changing and that's bad. It's more that we're changing so fast, we don't really know what to expect.
Yeah.
And it's like, it might be good, it might be negative, it might be neutral. We don't know. So, but that the thing, one of our things we've been talking about, Brian, I want you to share a little bit about just, again, the balance behind this.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's important that we see the value of technology. We also see some of the dangers, and we live a balanced life. I mean, I grew up in an age without a lot of technology. I mean, we were just getting cable. It was the 80s. We were just getting cable TV. Video games were a big thing. And, people thought that those video games were going to rot our brains.
Right.
And maybe they did. I don't know. But we're most of us that grew up in the 80s are okay. We're good. And we love video games. Video games are a part of life nowadays. So it's not that those things are bad. It's that we just need to be careful and not let those things consume us. And I think just like anything in our life, technology can become an idol.
Yes.
And so I think we need to use technology in a positive, good way that honors God and glorifies God, and not let it become an idol. Like really anything in our life can become an idol, right?
I totally agree. And that's one of the things I wanted people to see, is that, and maybe I don't think we're biased, because I think you and we talk a lot about this stuff. We're very, we just don't want people to think that we're like anti-technology.
Sure.
Because that's totally not the case.
That's not true, yeah.
We love technology, and I think that the pros outweigh the cons.
Right. Well, I mean, we're using computer right now to record.
Yeah.
And
I'm on an iPad right now.
People are going to be listening on their phones or wherever, their computers. So, I mean, this only becomes possible because of technology. So we love it. And this is one of the good ways to use technology, right?
I totally agree. And so that's what we just want people to understand, kind of where we're coming from and what we really think about this stuff as it pertains to especially our walk with the Lord. And so we'll be getting into that more as we go through this series. But
and the parents need to really understand their responsibility in this. And I think that, children are going to, it's like a child that sees a big cake. We as parents take a slice of cake and give them that cake. We don't just set them down with a fork and say, here's a cake, because a child will eat the entire
whole
cake
thing and then go puke it all up later on, and you got a big mess to clean up.
The same thing with technology. We've got to teach our kids how to use it. We've got to teach them the boundaries and the limits and what's good and what's not good, and give them technology in slices, like a cake. So parents, we really need to really be students of these things. And I know there are some people out there that just say, I don't understand technology. I don't know how to use it. And that's okay. There are others that can help you. Mm-hmm. There's lots of resources out there. The way I learn things nowadays, I just had a computer problem. I went on YouTube and watched a video of how to fix my computer.
That's the way to do it. You can figure anything out now. That's
so
what's so amazing
if you don't
about
understand something that your kids are doing or they're into, there's resources out there to figure that out and learn that. But we can't just pass the buck and say, well, I'm not a computer person.
Right.
I don't understand it. We have a responsibility as parents to be in front of them and to protect them in that.
That's exactly why we're doing this.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times I've seen parents just give unfettered access to the internet to their young, I'm talking young
right.
children, and that is so disastrous for you, parent.
Right.
That's disastrous. It's terrible for your child, but it will end up coming back and harming you
right.
as well. And
right.
so anyways, we've talked about that a little bit.
One of the interesting things in the book was it did talk about the difference between what we call digital natives and digital immigrants. So it's defining this as a native is born after the advent of digital tech, or maybe we could say like around the time the internet became really usable and accessible. We're thinking really about the turn of the century, late 90s, early 2000s, and the immigrants were born before the advent of this digital tech. I mean, they still had computers and even the early parts of the internet,
right?
But it wasn't a part of everyday life.
Yeah.
It wasn't cell phones. It wasn't on kiosk everywhere you go. It wasn't like that.
That's right. Yeah, people. Yeah, like what a payphone is when you're an immigrant.
Yeah, right. Well, and I grew up in. I was born in 1980, so I just turned 40 this year. But I grew up before the digital revolution.
Right.
I remember the world before computers. I remember having a phone attached to the wall in our house.
Yep.
We did have cable TV, so I wasn't completely destitute. It's not like the kids are asking me, did you watch black and white TV?
Yeah.
We did have that stuff. And my parents were fairly, wanting, to know technology. We had a computer fairly on that they ordered offline and built themselves. And, we had computers and we had internet as it was available, AOL and the dial-up and all those types of things. So while I am an immigrant to the digital revolution, I'm what they would call an enthusiastic adopter.
Right.
I'm somebody that can love technology, keep up with it. I feel at home. It's intuitive to me and just feel at ease with it. But there's some that are kind of reluctant adopters. They use email, and maybe they're a generation before me.
Right.
They use email, they get on Facebook, they have their smartphone.
Right.
But they still feel a little uneasy with technology.
Yeah, or even out of step with, like, they don't fully understand, like, it's not intuitive, and so they don't adopt it just as easily, and so it's still kind of a foreign concept to them.
Right. And there's some that are just avoiders.
Yeah.
And they don't want a computer. They don't have email. They don't have Facebook. We see less and less of that.
Right.
And I think as we go along and many people from earlier generations die off. What's interesting is, like, for instance, I think of like my parents, for instance, they are up on technology because of their job and their work and the things that they've had to kind of adapt to. And so now technology is not scary for them. I really think it becomes kind of what you did as you grew up and how your work life was.
And I really think too, we're able to have this conversation like this because we're kind of in the place where things changed. And so we're able to see the contrast because we are living in the time frame of the change.
Right.
And so we know people that lived before and we know people that were born after.
Right.
In like 100 years, this is going to be less of a conversation.
Yes.
Because more people will be used to technology.
Right.
And everyone will be a native.
Right.
Eventually.
Right. Well, and that's where we find ourselves today with our kids and teens.
Exactly.
Like my daughter is 14. And so born in 2000 and let's see, it's 2020.
You got this.
2006. They didn't say math was going to be a part of this. Okay?
No, I'm sorry. Yeah.
But there's not been a day where she's not known the internet existed.
Exactly. And, and
it's
smartphones.
just not.
Yeah.
It's not. It's just the kids today. It's always been a part of their life, and
Yep.
so it's almost like a reverse because now the majority of them are what we would call enthusiastic participants.
Yeah.
They love technology.
Yep.
They want to be in on it. They want to be engaged in social media. Their first thought is, I'm going to go to the internet to find out information.
Yeah, it's not even a like, I have to remember this. It's
Right.
this is a natural part of their lives.
Right.
And so I have a similar but slightly different experience than you, because I was born in '89. So I think just that small amount of time actually produced a different experience for me. I still, had like, we had the computers in the house, and my dad, he was, I would call him an enthusiastic adopter as an immigrant. And so I think that I'm somewhere in this, I think you're like on the tail end of the immigrants,
Sure.
and I'm on the very beginning
Sure.
of the natives.
Right.
But I would consider myself more of like a minimalist, even though I'm somewhere between minimalist and enthusiastic participant.
So that's another category for natives is minimalist.
Is the minimalist, right?
And what does that look like?
And so that's somebody who uses technology. It's necessary. They know that this is a part of life. They understand it. They get it. It's just not something that they like love to do all the time.
Yeah, if you didn't have to use it for work, you probably wouldn't use social media very much, and you probably wouldn't engage digitally all that much, right?
Everything like whenever I use technology, it's usually for a purpose. It's not just because.
Yeah.
Like, I don't play, I'm a youth pastor, but I don't play a lot of video games.
Sure.
And people are like, what?
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm like, video games are evil. It's
Right.
it's just because I just don't like
Just not
them that
interested
much.
in, yeah.
So I love to watch people play video games.
Sure.
So I'm kind of in that weird place, but I still
I'll
love technology.
I'll post something
though.
on Facebook, and like a week later, Brian likes it.
I know, yeah. Like, I'm getting my weekly catch up on Facebook, and so people, that's
but this
that's
is
the way it is.
This is a thing,
for
and I
me.
will say this because a lot of people have realized some of the dangers, and they've pulled back away from technology, and they've
Right.
intentionally become minimalist. In fact, there's products marketed like there's a smartphone that's a minimalist smartphone.
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
And so you can take this phone out, and it will give you just like a phone call or text message, but it won't do like Facebook and
Yep.
Twitter and all those types of things.
Yep.
So, I mean, we're actually kind of reverting back
Right.
to some of these minimalist things, which are good in some ways.
Well, and it's really about discipline, that's the thing for we all, and that's kind of the balance. We talk about balance. It really comes from being able to discipline yourself.
Right.
If you have to have a dumb phone to do that, then okay.
Right.
I don't personally need a dumb phone to not use it
Sure.
all the time. But there are people who are avoiders,
Right.
who are natives. I mean, there are Gen Zers and millennials that just don't like technology. They are
They're
fewer.
rare, I
and-
think,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
But they do exist out there. These are people that might have Facebook. They probably have an email because, I mean, even if you go to the store, you have to have an email to give to them for discounts and stuff. But they are never going to use it. They don't use it. They have like you were talking about, a minimalist phone or something, and it's because they don't like it. And so there are people out there, but they are few and far between.
Right.
So
Yeah.
those are kind of the categories for just where people are, and you might be somewhere in between. You
Yeah,
might
it's
not
good-
be on that list.
It's
I
good
don't
for
know.
parents to kind of think about where they're at and where they fall, just so they can understand themselves. Because, once again, if you're a avoider of technology, but you're a parent and your kids use technology, you have to really grow and stretch yourself, Or maybe if you're an enthusiastic, adopter or user, then you've got to really think about, are there things that I'm engaging in that I need to pull back from?
Right. And so this is not only for kids. It's
Right.
like parents, we have to take responsibility for our own use of technology.
Right.
But understanding where you are on this list and then knowing where your kid is
Right.
is going to be so helpful
Right.
in being able to interact with them regarding technology.
Right.
If you know your kid is an enthusiastic participant and is like always on Snapchat, but you happen to be a reluctant adopter,
Right.
immigrant, well, then you're gonna have to take steps to really understand what their world is like.
Right.
And that's why we're
Exactly.
bringing this stuff up, is
Yeah.
just so you know how to interact with them that way.
Yeah. I do think that this does have effects on our spiritual life,
Absolutely.
and some of them are negative because, I mean, think about this technology. And when we think about technology, we're thinking with teenagers like social media and, we're thinking about video games. We're thinking about
Yeah.
Netflix, streaming, all those types of things. Those are distractions.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes a distraction can be good. I love to go home at the end of the day and watch a ball game because I can just watch the ball game, take my mind off of everything else, and just be distracted. But I can't live my life distracted.
Continually distracted. That's unhelpful.
I think there's a danger for teenagers and children to live their life distracted, especially when it comes to spiritual things, because technology does not inherently push you into spiritual things,
No,
right?
That's right. And that's why a lot of people get this feeling that, like, especially like pastors think technology is bad, because it's not that we think technology is bad. It's that we know that the enemy is using this to steal away your mind from godly things. The world is at your fingertips, and that is both good and extremely dangerous. And so that happens, but it also affects our patience.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that with instant access, instant gratification, instant whatever I want, it makes it much harder when you're used to that, so much harder to sit down and read a book.
Yeah.
Because it takes time, and you actually have to think, and put a lot of effort in, and it just takes way longer to watch a book or to read a book than it does to watch a movie.
And I think part of this, whether even when we talk about distracting and we talk about patience and these other things, it's focusing on self.
Right.
And so it's like, I'm the most important thing in my world right now. And so I shouldn't have to wait for anything. I shouldn't have to wait for, 2-day shipping isn't even fast enough for me anymore, And it's like, we've got to take a step back and realize we are not the most important thing. It's the Lord and glorifying him. So taking those distractions back and saying, okay, I need to spend time with the Lord. I need to spend time to read and reflect and to pray. And then also in the area of patience, I need to be able to wait and allow the Lord to work and understand that I don't get what I want exactly when I want it.
And that's why, reading the Bible, how many times does the Bible say, wait on the Lord, trust in the Lord, be patient in the Lord? When you've got your phone right there and you can instantly gratify whatever desires you have, it can be tempting to ignore God's word because it tells you to wait.
Right.
And so we've just got to push back against that.
Another interesting thing is that kids or teenagers are having difficulty with problem solving, meditating, connecting ideas. It's really some of these deeper, like more thoughtful things that you have to reflect on. And there was a quote in here that I thought was really interesting. It says, researchers are warning that the ability to contemplate or meditate declines in those who over-engage the digital world. So, think about this for a minute. I love to just go sit on the porch and not have put my phone down. Maybe I'll have some music on or something. And I'm just thinking, maybe I'm praying, maybe I'm thinking about something going on in my life or whatever. And that is just, and I just can't imagine not having time to just slow down and stop and kind of process the world. And I probably need to do it more than I do.
We all do, right?
But I know that if you're hit with a constant barrage of media and this and that, and here's the thing. You could sit and watch stuff on YouTube, Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, whatever. You could go, there's so much content. You could go from morning to night and never stop. Day after day after day after day. So we have to come to the place to where we realize we can't watch it all.
Right.
We can't engage in all of it. We can't see all that Facebook or all that Twitter is going to offer. So we take it in bite-sized chunks and we don't let it control us. And then we find other times to just be with our family, to be with ourselves, to be with our Lord. We've got to do that.
We have to do those
things.
And
us as adults have to do that.
Yes. And that's the real big thing here is that, we all can see some of these things, especially, parents, adults, we can look at this and recognize it and then be like, yeah, kids, they got to put away them cell phones.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, maybe. But, it's so funny. You go out to eat and you sit down. You go to a nice restaurant. You sit down to eat. And if you're like me, you like to kind of just see, what other people are getting or, whatever's going on around you. And you notice people just sitting there on their phones the whole time.
Yeah, right.
And you can tell they are not, they're not like, have you ever seen those people that are sitting there, they're on a date and they're just not having a good time.
Yeah,
And they are just on their phones, the guy's like checking his, I don't know, emails, and the girl's on, I don't know what she's on, but they're just ignoring each other.
Right.
And it's taking away from the joy of life because it's become your life.
Right.
And I was thinking about this. It's like you said with cake. It's like dessert. It's not something that should be our constant diet. If it's your constant diet, it'll end up killing you.
Right.
And so
social media in many ways. I mean, I understand there's a big connecting part of it. There's a big information news part of it, but it's also entertainment.
It is. It's entertainment.
Right. So we got to be careful with that. You know, we have a rule at our house where we don't have technology at the dinner table.
That's a good rule.
And I've been caught before. So I get a notification. I pick up my phone and the kid's like, Dad, you're not supposed to be on your phone. You're right.
And that's so good though. They obviously get it.
Yeah.
That means you're winning right there. You know?
Right. And there's times where Christy and I have to remind each other. It's like, hey, let's put our phones down and let's just talk. Let's just connect with each other and not play games. I'm not a big phone game player, but she likes to play games on her phone. And so, she'll be playing a game and I'll be looking at Facebook, and it's like, hey, let's put our phones down and just talk.
Man, we do the same thing. And it's like, you just got to have accountability and each other helping each other. And sometimes it's like, we'll ask each other like, hey, do you need to be on your phone right now?
Sure.
And sometimes, like, cause I don't know what my wife's been doing all day long. I'm at work. She's at home. She's probably, sometimes she's like been working the whole day long, and I get home and she's just, just taking a break,
Right.
And I'll be like, do you need to be on your phone right now? She'd be like, well, no, but I've not been on it all day.
Right.
I'm like, cool. No worries then.
Yeah, I think it's important, though. We've got to admit our own abuses about technology.
Exactly.
And if it has become an idol in our life, if there's a sinful aspect to it, we've got to repent and turn that over to Christ and say, God, you are in control of every aspect of our life, including the digital aspect.
Including, especially. And you do that, and that'll show a lot of things to your children.
Right. Yeah, find balance. Make sure that you're in control of your own uses of technology and what your kids are doing.
And you got to be able to, you don't want to be a tyrant. You don't want to be a pushover.
Right.
You got to be able to say no without being a legalist.
Right.
And a lot of parents, we struggle to say no, or we turn over and become a legalist. And that's why this is hard, is because it's balance.
Right.
And the last thing we have to do is just arm ourselves with knowledge about the digital world that your child lives in, that you live in. We've got to know where we live so that we can engage where we live with the gospel.
Right. Yeah, we're going to talk more about some practical things you can do and things that, even some of like the nuts and bolts of technology and things as we go on. But we really just want to introduce this and say, technology is good and can be good, but there's also some things we need to warn ourselves. And a lot is in the area of just controlling our lives. And if we give our lives over and just completely give ourselves over to this with no thought or regard, it is going to be a problem.
That's right. We have to recognize that this is a spiritual battle. This isn't just, whether or not you like phones. It's spiritual.
Right.
And we have to take up that battle because we follow the Lord.
Right, exactly.
And we can do it because the Lord's with us.
That's right.
We got this.
The Lord is the Lord over all the internet as well.
Amen. Amen. We gotta start proclaiming that. That's good. That's good. So, well, thank you, listeners, for joining us on this. We hope that this will be a great series for us and for you. And we'll
catch you on the
time.
flip side.
Messed it up.
Bye.
We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.
Very Marble. Thoughts for your thoughts.
And I'm August Clementine.
Absorb the aggression. Kayla and I have been quoting that a lot lately. Absorb. I'd like to apologize to our listeners for my raising my voice.
And now we have Jazz on Jazz.